Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you are new, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm your host Faven. I use she, they, they pronouns, and I am so excited for today's video. If you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. I really do appreciate you. Let's get into today's video. So today's video, if you can tell by the title, is going to be talking about being non-binary. This video was supposed to come out last week, but there was technical difficulties, plus I decided to re-film it for like the fourth time. This is my new hair, and the video for this will be out later, either Friday or sometime next week. I'm not really sure yet because I haven't planned that far ahead on what video is coming out next week. Before I begin today's video, I do want to plug my social medias. I have a TikTok where I post fun videos, an Instagram where I post fun pics, a Twitter where I post fun retweets. I also have a Goodreads where I post fun book reviews, and a Pinterest where I post fun boards, all linked in the description box down below. If you want to give me a follow, thank you in advance. And now, let's get into today's video. So, I recorded it a couple times, like non-binary video, and every single time I felt like I was missing certain things that I didn't discuss, so I refilmed it. And so this time when I'm filming it, I'm going to be using an article to help me so I make sure I hit all of the points. I am going to first give you some definitions, because in order for us to have this discussion, we need to all know the definitions that I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to pause here for those definitions. Gender refers to characteristics of women, men, girls, and boys that are socially constructed. This includes norms, behaviors, and roles associated with being a woman, man, girl, or boy, as well as relationships with each other. Cisgender describes a person whose gender identity and gender expression align with their sex assigned at birth. Transgender is an umbrella term for persons whose gender identity, gender expression, or behavior does not conform to that typically associated with the sex to which they were assigned at birth. Non-binary is a broadly encompassing gender identity, which means that one isn't exclusively male or female, or doesn't conform to, or their gender doesn't fit into the gender binary system. Demigirl is a gender identity describing someone who partially but not wholly identifies as a woman, girl, or otherwise feminine, regardless of their assigned gender at birth. Now, the article I'm going to be reading from comes from the socialmix.com website, and the name of the article is 8 Significant Signs You Might Be Non-Binary. And I'm going to be reading the 8 points and talking about my own experience, and I will also leave a link to this very article down below if you want to check it out for yourself. How I knew I was non-binary. I wasn't necessarily a tomboy growing up, but I wasn't a very girly girl either. This didn't mean much to me when I was little because I didn't know that gender was a fluid thing. I didn't know there was more than 2 genders. It was beginning of my sophomore year in high school when I started questioning. I cut my hair short, and that's when I started feeling different. I asked my sister, who also cut her hair short before me, if she started questioning her gender after cutting her hair, and she said no. I realized that there might be something there. It took me a few months to conclude that non-binary was the proper identification for me. I thought at first that I was maybe gender fluid, but I don't feel like a boy or a girl ever. So that's this person's story. I'm going to start with the different points now. Number 1, you're questioning your gender. I started questioning my gender, actively questioning my gender at, I don't remember the actual age, 2 years ago, so I was 24 and 2020. Started questioning it after, found it on Twitter. And people have their own thoughts about Twitter. That's fine. I was reading a tweet on someone complaining about someone calling themselves a non-binary woman, and I was very intrigued. So I read the comments underneath that tweet, and someone was talking about being a demigirl, and I found found out what that meant, and I identified with it, watched YouTube videos on it, and started using the label for myself 2 years ago. I was questioning my gender before, but it wasn't a very actively seeking out answers kind of way. Just like, why don't I relate to people that I come in contact with, kind of thing. And there's also numerous reasons why I don't feel like these other people do, but gender is also a part of that. Number 2, you feel more comfortable dressing androgynous. When I first read this, I was like, I don't agree with that, because I'm wearing feminine clothing all the time. Now, I shop in the women's section mostly because I like their clothing items more, and I know it will fit me. I already know my sizing, kind of thing. But I do dress in more like loose fitting clothing, and clothing that wasn't necessarily like this shirt is not a good example of me dressing feminine. Now, this was in the women's section kind of thing, but it's very like loose and doesn't like give actual like shape to my body, and I'm very comfortable wearing it, and I'll probably go all day wearing it and be totally comfortable in it, versus like when I go out and I'm wearing like a more feminine top, like as soon as I get home I'm tired of wearing it and I snatch it off and put on a loose top. It could be because of my sensory issues as well, and this one doesn't bother my sensory issues, so yeah, there's also that going into play. Number 3, you don't feel comfortable using he, him, or she, her pronouns. I partially agree with this. I do prefer using they, them, and I started putting it in my bios, and I'm going to be using them, they, them, going forward after this video because I like them more, but I don't get too angry when someone uses she, her pronouns for me as well. I just want they, them to be like the one people go to first, and if they have a slip up, it's fine. It's just use they, them, kind of thing. It also depends on who's saying it. Sometimes, because sometimes people use pronouns as a like weapon kind of thing, and I don't really like that. Like, then definitely just use they, them. Thanks. Number 4, you don't identify as your birth sex. If you don't feel comfortable living as a gender you were assigned at birth, this is another good sign that you might be non-binary. Living as a gender you were assigned at birth is called cisgender, but if you don't feel this way, you're most likely genderqueer in some way, whether it be transgender, gender fluid, or non-binary, etc. I do partially identify with the sex I was born with, but not fully. And I don't feel comfortable calling myself a woman, but I do recognize that I am a black woman, and that's kind of why I partially identify with being a woman, because I recognize myself as a black woman. I just don't go around calling myself a woman. I don't like the label. I've never liked the label for myself, especially at the age of 8, but as time grew on, I still didn't like the label for myself, so I don't use women to label myself like at all. I don't like it. Yeah. Number 6, you don't quite feel like you're transgender, but you don't quite feel like you're cisgender either. You may feel slight feeling that you might be transgender, but this could also be part of you that tells you otherwise. This is okay. If you feel in between genders, then you may be queer gender, whether that be gender fluid, non-binary, or something else. I don't quite feel cisgender. I do partially identify with being a woman, but not enough to go with that label. I don't feel comfortable with being called a woman, but I don't quite feel transgender either. I don't quite relate to that label, but recognizing that non-binary falls under the transgender umbrella, and so I am transgender, but I'm trans non-binary. Number 7, you genuinely want to be. If you want to be non-binary, then you can be non-binary. Simply wanting to be non-binary is quite a significant sign that you might be. If you genuinely feel and want to be non-binary, then you are. End of story. I find it funny when I first was like reading about gender and stuff like that, demigirl, non-binary, and stuff. I was like, I cannot wait until I reach the point where I don't use demigirl, I use non-binary. I was like, I can't wait for that to reach that level. I'm kind of at that level. While I still recognize myself as a demigirl, I use non-binary more often than demigirl. And when I went to Pride, I was very happy when I was very nervous to buy a non-binary flag, but I was like, I'm gonna do it. I really want it. So if you saw that video, I will link it. I actually bought the non-binary flag, and it makes me really happy that I have it now. I have my non-binary one and my asexual one. I still have to get the Aromantic one, but I'm so happy that I got the non-binary one. I was like, I'm gonna do it, and I did it, so I have it. Yay! And number 8, which I find to be hilarious, you're reading this article. If you're reading this with genuine curiosity, then it's a good sign that you are non-binary. Now, because finding out that cisgender people don't question their gender, they don't how do I know I'm cisgender? How do I know this? They don't go actively looking for answers or questions, answering questions on their gender. That's how they know. And non-binary people, how do they know they're non-binary? They ask Google, and they come across an article talking about being non-binary. At the bottom of the article it says, you read this article from top to bottom, that's how you know you're non-binary. And so that's just interesting, and I love that I validating, it's very validating, just how do you know? You're questioning it, you're looking it up, and you genuinely want to be, kind of things. And so you are, if you want to be it and you connect with it, that's how you know you're non-binary. So that's it on the article. I do find it very interesting. I did a TikTok talking about a character that you view as non-binary, and I said I don't have them on my wall yet. I said Rough Nut, and I got a very it's my most popular video on my TikTok, my second TikTok. It's my most popular video, and I was like, ooh, I'm so happy that other people also thought that, and also they left their own person that they thought was non-binary, and I loved that too. I don't necessarily watch all the things, but who am I to argue with non-binary people who think that a character they've seen on TV is non-binary? So I just whenever I see a comment that they name a person they think is non-binary, I just like it, because I'm just I love that. Even if I don't know the character, I don't know most of the characters that they're talking about, but I just love that they answer the question. It wasn't necessarily a question for them to answer, but I love that they answered it anyway, because I got to see people saying, yes, I was thinking it too, or I'm just, and they give their own character, and I'm I love that. So that made me really happy, and it's my most viewed video, my most liked video, and I'm that's so cool. But yeah, that is all for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up if you like. Subscribe if you want to. Hit the bell notification notified when I upload. I try to upload twice a week. My social medias are all linked in the description box down below, and give me a follow. Comments. If you would like to talk about how you discovered you were non-binary, or if you knew that you weren't non-binary, or your label, and if you feel comfortable commenting it, feel free to share your story. I would love to read it. But if you don't feel comfortable, that's okay too. And if you're still questioning it, even after watching the video and reading the articles and stuff, that's okay too. You don't have to know the answer right away. It took me 2 years to even fully come to terms with being non-binary, and so take all the time you need. I love you. And until next time, drink some water, eat a snack, play with joy, enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of Pride Month. Bye!